Namaste, dear friends, and welcome to my channel. Today, I'm going to be speaking about how to grow completely natural dreadlocks. My journey with dreadlocks actually began over 10 years ago. I remember the last time I cut my hair was July of 2014, and I'm at the moment currently on a family holiday in Thailand with my wife and my parents and my sister. And regardless of where I go, the dreadlocks are always a conversation starter. People always ask me, "Oh, that's your hair's really cool. How did you grow it? How do you make it? Is it natural or is it made?" And so on and so forth. And most people are shocked when I tell them that this is all completely my hair and it's completely natural. I haven't added anything to it. So I thought I would make a video to explain a bit more about how I take care of my hair and how I started this whole process of making natural dreadlocks. So the first thing I would say is that it actually is very difficult to make natural dreadlocks if your hair is silky or straight. So you would need to have some amount of wavy or curly hair to be able to make natural dreadlocks. So if you do have wavy or curly hair, there's an easy way to make natural dreadlocks, which is not so harsh on your scalp and your hair itself. So most of the other ways to make dreadlocks are, one method is a back combing method. So where you take your straight hair and you basically make all your hair into split ends and you back comb it, back comb it, back comb it until they become dreadlocks. And this is really harmful for your hair. You pretty much have dead hair at the end of it. So the hair isn't alive. It looks like dreadlocks, but over time, the dreadlocks won't look so healthy, won't look nice. It will look much more shabby. And so I would not recommend back combing unless, of course, you really want to get dreadlocks and you have straight or silky hair, and that's the only way to do it then. The second way is through a crochet needle, where you take the crochet needle and you kind of mess up the hair. And this is something actually I currently use to put all this new growth of hair. So you can see all this new hair that's coming up. I haven't done it for a while. So this hair needs to be put back into the dreadlock at some point, and I use a crochet needle. My wife helps me with it. So she takes this hair and puts it back into the dreadlock. But that is just for maintenance. When I made my dreadlocks, I didn't make it using the crochet method. I did it completely naturally. The crochet method is very time intensive if you have to make dreadlocks from scratch, and you have to repeatedly keep going to somebody to do the crochet, and it's also very painful on the scalp. So it's again, it's not really harmful to the hair, but it's very painful to your scalp, and it takes a long time to do it. If you have time and if you have patience, I would say the natural way of getting dreadlocks is the best way. However, some few things to note when you're getting natural dreadlocks is that for the first 6 months, your hair will look shabby. It won't look good. Your dreadlocks will not look healthy. Like now, my dreadlocks are mature. They look good. In the beginning they won't look like that, and oftentimes you might easily get scared, especially by people around you, maybe your mother. Like for instance, for me, my mom would keep telling me, "Oh my god, your hair looks so shabby, so bad. It's becoming like a homeless person's hair," or something like this. So I think you have to have a little bit of patience with the process. It takes time to form mature dreadlocks through the natural method. So how do you grow dreadlocks naturally? The first thing, of course, is that you stop combing your hair. So no combing your hair with a comb, and neither do you want to comb your hair with your fingers, so you don't pass your fingers through your hair. You kind of stop combing your hair at all. In this process, while you stop combing your hair, it's very important to keep your hair very clean, because this is going to, the dreadlocks are going to form, and if your hair is very dirty, there's going to be a lot of dirt trapped in those dreadlocks. So during this time, if you're going out in crowded streets, maybe wearing a hat or something to cover your hair, um, and basically making sure you keep washing your hair with shampoo, and I'll come later to what kind of shampoo we should use. So you can keep washing your hair, but as much as possible trying not to comb it while you're washing it. So you can wash it, but not taking out the knots, not combing it. So I would recommend always to use a residue free shampoo, which means that usually when you have shampoos nowadays, you wash it in your hand and it foams up, and then you put it under a running water, and even after say 30 seconds of your hand being under running water, you still feel this kind of oiliness, this moisture of the shampoo in your palms, and that means those shampoos have a lot of residues in them, oily residues which get left behind in the dreadlocks. So we don't want to use very shampoos full of residue. We want to use shampoos which have lesser residue. And I think the easiest way to check it out is to just run the shampoo on your hand and put it under water and see if that oiliness is completely gone. If it is not gone, then it could be a cause for concern if used over a long period of time. I once had a friend who wanted to remove his dreadlocks. He shaved his dreadlocks, and he then opened the dreadlocks up from the center. And inside the dreadlock, there was a lot of these kind of white powder, and which was essentially, he realized, was the residues from the shampoos he was using. So for the long-term health of your dreadlocks, making sure not to use shampoos which have a high residue. So now we've stopped combing our hair. Of course, you need hair of about this length. So that's when I started making dreadlocks. When I had hair of about this length, my hair was already very curly. With really short hair, you cannot make natural dreadlocks. You need hair of a certain length, about this much, to make natural dreadlocks. This is because during the phase when your dreadlocks are forming, you will lose a lot of hair length, which means that, imagine that this was straight hair. The way that dreadlocks form are that slowly this hair starts to curve in this way, and you have this happening, and then maybe this starts to, over time, as you sleep on it and your head rests on it and you compress it in different positions, after about 6 months it would become a dreadlock like this. So you would lose all of that length of hair. So from it being this long, your hair would become this long. But of course, during that 6 month period, your hair is still growing slightly. But when you make dreadlocks itself, you lose a bit of length. That's why you need, if you have hair this long, you'll probably, after 6 months, your length of dreadlocks would be this long, a little bit shorter in that period. So this knotting process that naturally happens, initially it starts to happen throughout the scalp, where actually it's like your hair becomes one big knot. So there's one big dreadlock that is starting to form, and what you have to be very careful of is to keep splitting them apart. So you need to figure out what are the sections, and you can feel it. So two dreadlocks, you'll start to rip apart, to pull apart throughout your hair, and you just basically use your force to rip. There'll be a slight ripping like sound, which is basically the dreadlock splitting. And you would initially, for the first 6 months, have to be very careful about this process, doing it every day if possible before you go to sleep. If you can do it twice a day, that's perfect. That would be awesome. uh, I didn't put so much of effort into this process, and so I had two dreadlocks in the top back here, which kind of joined together and became one big fat dreadlock. And over time, I realized it's much harder to keep that dreadlock clean. So after a point, I got a friend to come with their scissors in there and to split it up. Um, but I would suggest it's always better if you do it from the beginning itself. You keep all the sections divided so that you have smaller dreadlocks and not just one big dreadlock. So how many dreadlocks should you have while you're in this process of splitting the dreadlocks? I have about 28 dreadlocks, and I think that is good if you want nice thick fat dreadlocks. Some people have thinner dreadlocks, up to 60, 70 dreadlocks on the head. I would say a good range to keep is about between 25 to 40, not having too many and not having too little either. So now we've got through this phase where we stop where we stop combing our hair, sorry, and we continue to wash our hair. We are splitting the dreadlocks together, and slowly, just if our hair is naturally wavy and curly, we will already start to develop the dreadlocks. It will not look so good in the beginning, but as the dreadlock grows, so as it grows, as there's more mass on it, and as it keeps growing, the weight of that will pull it and make it look more compact. So initially it won't look so compact. It takes a while, and for me it really started to look much more compact about a couple of years into the whole dreadlock process, and started to look better and better with time. So this is the natural way to grow dreadlocks, and it requires a bit of patience. However, also you do note that it's very difficult to get rid of dreadlocks. You have to literally saw them open or shave your head if you want to get rid of it. So really, it's not a kind of hairstyle for a season or for a summer. It's a pretty much a lifetime kind of hairstyle. So if you really, really want it, there should be some good reason for why you want it. So, for instance, in my case, the reason I wanted to grow dreadlocks was more from a yogic perspective. Listening to different saints and yogis talking about the power that lies in our hair and why we shouldn't cut it and so on. At that time, it of course inspired me, and that's why I chose to grow my dreadlocks. And it's been a journey for me where actually ever since childhood I always wanted to grow my hair. And in India we have schools which have strict code of uniform, of haircuts and so on. So every morning we would have an assembly in the morning where we would sing the national anthem and so on, and also the teacher would move around checking the length of our hair, and I would keep getting notes in my notebook to my parents saying that your son's hair is too long and so on and so forth. So I had to keep cutting it against my wishes. And the moment I was in university and I could start growing my hair, that's when I started to grow it. Um, I cut it once, of course, in between, but then ever since I haven't cut it. So it's continuously been growing. So another thing with the dreadlocks is you will notice that, for example, I have these, so my hair is naturally curly. You can see the curls at the end. And you would also, I don't know if you can notice in the camera, but you can see that the hair is slightly brown. So my hair is actually naturally black, but because of being out in the sun with the dreadlocks, this hair becomes brown. So what happens is that the dreadlocks grow so much in length because the hair that's fallen out of my scalp, it stays in the dreadlock instead of falling down on the floor. And so there is also a lot of dead hair kind of in the dreadlock. So to take care of the dreadlock, it's very important to put high quality oil on your scalp, to put high quality oil especially on the ends of on the dreadlock, the tips. For instance, right now my dreadlocks are very dry at the end, so I need to be putting some high quality oil at the tips. And of course, if you're going to be applying so much of high quality oil into your hair, I personally love sesame oil. Argan oil is nice in some weathers, especially if it's dry outside. If there's a lot of moisture in the air, argan oil doesn't do well for me. Then I prefer something stronger like castor oil. Castor oil is also really great. But the question here would be that how do you get all this hair and dirt out of the dreadlocks? So to when you shower, when you wash your hair, you would wash it like clothes, and I would suggest to every couple of weeks, or at least every couple of weeks, or if not possible, at least every month, to have a shower in a bathtub. So you fill up the bathtub with warm water, and you're basically putting your head into the bathtub and you're wringing your hair, squeezing it, turning it the way you would wash clothes, to get out all that excess oil and dust from the hair. And you could wash your hair in that way every time. And once in a 6 months or once in a year, you can basically have a wash, a deep wash of the dreadlocks, where you soak it in a bathtub first of baking soda and water, and then you rinse. You throw out the water. You put vinegar and water after that to balance the pH in the hair, and then the last you finish with just warm water and essential oils to bring that antibacterial qualities into the dreadlocks. So this cleanse can be done once in 6 months, once in a year. Of course, if you have a friend, a family member, a partner who'd be willing to help you, they can help you wash the dreadlocks. That would be also greatly beneficial. So the most important thing to be aware of while making dreadlocks is mold, because this is the biggest problem I would say in dreadlocks, is if mold starts to grow in the dreadlocks. So this can happen if the dreadlock is wet for more than 72 hours at a stretch. So if it's continuously wet for more than 72 hours, you can suddenly have fungi or mold that starts to grow in the dreadlocks. This will cause the dreadlocks to start stinking, to start smelling, and this is the reason why some people's dreadlocks start to smell, is because they have mold growing inside the dreadlock, and once it gets in there, it's really hard to get it out. So this is something one should be really careful of while growing your dreadlocks. Essentially not keeping it wet for too long. So you would wash your dreadlocks only once a week, and make sure to dry your dreadlocks in the sun if possible. So drying your dreadlocks in the sun is great. And if, for example, you find that after 24 hours your dreadlocks are still not dry, I would suggest to put some antibacterial oil into them. So like you can take maybe a castor oil and putting a few drops of peppermint oil or tea tree oil, something antibacterial, and rubbing it into the wet hair, so that the you basically stop the growth of any kind of mold. But usually if it's more than 72 hours, you have to be wary of it. You have to put more and more essential oils to make sure that a mold doesn't take hold in the hair. So I think that's the biggest danger of natural dreadlocks, is getting a mold into the hair. But as long as you take good care of that, and I make sure to not wet my hair unless absolutely needed. So if I know that, if I'm, say for example, now I'm near the beach in the sea, and it's a beautiful clean ocean, white sands, blue waters, turquoise waters, and it's really inviting to jump in and wet myself completely. But I have to, for instance, be a bit careful about, okay, is it a sunny day? If it's a sunny day, okay, let me do it. Or am I going to have a bath anyways afterwards? If I am going to have a bath, then sure, go ahead and wet the hair. But or if I've had a bath a day ago and my hair is just about dried up, then maybe it's not a good time to wet it straight away again. So of course I have to think of this from time to time, and for some people that may be too much. But I think that's the price of having healthy, good quality dreadlocks, is really taking care of the mold, and the wetness of the dreadlocks is really important. So thank you guys for staying tuned to this video, for watching. If you like this video, do give it a like. Do subscribe to my channel. I share a lot of videos about the yoga philosophy, about Ayurveda, and various practices of yoga. So thank you once again for joining, and I hope to see you soon.